Welcome to the Behind the Bits podcast. Your host, Scott Curtis, wants to learn everything he can about stand-up comedy and take you along for the ride. Scott and his guests talk serious about comedy in every episode. Behind the Bits will uncover knowledge from different perspectives on subjects such as writing and performing stand-up comedy, as well as booking shows and the comedy life. If you're thinking about becoming a stand-up comic, already in the comic game, or a comedy nerd, Behind the Bits is the show for you. Now, let's get Behind the Bits.
Hey, BTB buddies, I wanted to let you know that I have a Patreon page now so that you can support the show. Check out patreon.com/BTBPC and check out the cool stuff you can get for as little as $2 per month. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thanks, as always, for listening. As you know, I'm always looking for new podcasts. Not the famous podcasts made by famous people, but the independent podcasts made by unfamous people who are podcasting to inform and entertain you. I found a good one in the entertainment category. We all need some funny in our lives right now, and the Real Funny Stories podcast definitely brings it. College students hold a candlelight vigil for Taco Bell after it closes. Man wants to charge his girlfriend $24 a night when she sleeps over. Vegan bride banishes meat eaters from her wedding. Woman makes $60,000 a year selling her dirty underwear online. Check out Brooke and Julie on the Real Funny Stories podcast, where they talk about the funniest news stories you probably missed. They scour the internet each week to find the most hilarious, strange, and outlandish stories. Join them every Monday and prepare to laugh. Any platform you use, they are on it. Search the Real Funny Stories podcast and prepare to laugh. I'm talking to Matt Brown today. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing today, Scott?
So, Matt, you're a Chicago comic, and you started at a very young age. How young were you when you started?
So when I started writing for stage, I was actually 16.
Okay.
And I started performing, and I moved to Chicago to do comedy at 18.
Okay. So the writing part, let's talk about that. Were you writing like monologues, or were you writing actual jokes or bits, or what were you doing?
It was very interesting for the first couple of years that I was writing, and then for the first about 9 months that I was actually doing stand-up from about ages 18 to 19, I was obsessed with a good one-liner. I have always really liked older school comedy and more of that Moms Mabley, Joan Rivers, Don Rickles sort of real to the point kind of joke. And sort of people who think that you sort of get to the joke quickly think that it's a little old-fashioned. But I think it's a really important stage in development you have to go through, because to be able to make something that's long-winded interesting, you have to know how to be interesting for a little bit of time.
Yeah.
They make you do 6-minute sets for years before you get to do 15 and 20 for a reason.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
So you mentioned a ton of one-liners, limitless one-liners.
So you were just writing, just filling up notebooks.
I literally, no. I was so organized about it. I had a Google Drive.
Oh, okay.
I had everything organized.
Yeah.
I was such a type A nerd. And it's funny, I got more written when I was in high school because I lived in a small town, and I find being out of the city, I'm much more productive. When I moved to this city, I had like 10 single-space pages of just one-liners organized by topic. And then I had 2 movies that I'd written just to have in the back pocket.
Holy cow. You know, it's funny. I have always, since I started, I wrote all my stuff out longhand. And when the whole pandemic stuff started and I was working from home, I was in front of my computer all the time. So it wasn't easy for me to go to my notebook and back to the computer to work and stuff like that. So I just started a OneNote that I started adding to and making new notes on it. And now I've got that synced with my phone, so I'm doing that versus the writing it out longhand now. So I
just similarly started sort of like a similar process, because like this is my comedy notebook I've been using for a while. I call her the Underground Railroad because she's black and been through everything. And like there's like legal pads and paper clips and post-it notes and all this stuff. And like I like to keep it longhand because I feel like I remember better, and I feel like I'm able to keep a little bit more of a, like when I'm getting up a lot, I feel like I'm able to keep like a better relationship with it. But and I'll show you guys this because it's really cheap. I bought this little like 11-inch laptop for like $200 on Amazon, and I literally just keep Google Docs in there because I feel like I can keep better records as far as word count and how much material and all that stuff on just a totally separate device.
Yeah, that's a very good idea because
it's like, how many fucking empty extra cell phones do you have in your house? How many just stupid, just like barely dead laptops do you just keep around so you don't want to throw away? Spend $200 on something you're going to use.
Yeah, no doubt. It's funny because I almost lost my original notebook one time, and that freaked me out so bad because I can't remember anything. And
no terrible memory. I have, because I just moved, I have every notebook, every joke I've ever written since I was like 17 years old on paper in a box.
Now, you got me right at the beginning. You mentioned 3 comics that are actually maybe before your parents' time.
Yes.
So you got Don Rickles, Moms Mabley, and Joan Rivers. I mean, those are names that I know. How did you get exposed to them?
I was lucky enough to spend a lot of time and have a really close relationship with my grandmother, who was born in 1939.
There you go. Yeah.
So I really, like, my instincts for everything, I am a little uptight and a little old school and a little kind of like that because I was really raised by a very proper 104-year-old woman. And so, like, I really like a lot of 60s and 70s television and comedy. I think David Brenner is one of the funniest, most forgotten about people that won Emmy Awards and filled theaters, and everyone's like, David who?
Yeah.
And it's like, if you don't know your 70s comedy, you're missing a lot of like references for, I think, what makes today's style what it is. I have more modern people that I like, but like my really foundational people, like my joke to all my friends is, if you started comedy after the year 1990, don't talk to me. Like, that's like, I'm old school. I'm old school.
That's great. And when I watched a couple of your clips, and the longer one that's on your website, it's funny because you reminded me a little bit of a Don Rickles, Joan Rivers type thing, because you're talking to the audience, bringing them in with you, and you made it natural. It wasn't like forced or anything like that. So I respect people that can do that, because that's difficult.
It's work. It's work, but it's the only way I know how to do comedy, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So you just gotta do it. I did it my way, just like Sinatra.
So I know from being friends on Facebook that you came from a small town, Springfield, which is it's not as small as my town that I was from, but it's pretty small. Because
I lived in 2 small towns that are like 800 and 1,100 people next to it.
Okay.
But no one would recognize them, and it would like tell people where my parents lived.
Right.
So I used to say the town that's 20 miles away.
So I grew up in Lakeville, which is about 20 miles away from South Bend, and I always say South Bend because it's the same.
Yeah, because it's like, if I tell you which small town of 800 people, it will take you 30 seconds to find my mom at her job.
Yeah.
So we're just not doing that.
Oh, that's great. So between 16 and 18, you're writing all this stuff. So what is the impetus of you writing all this? Did you see at 16 that you wanted this was going to be your path? You were going to be a comic, or were you just writing it down to test it out, or what was going on in your head at that time?
Well, there were 2 kind of pushes. So the push that was like a little bit more like longer path was that actually from the ages of 11 to 18, I trained to be an opera singer.
Okay.
For 7 years, I was in lessons like 4 to 6 days a week, singing in 3 different choirs, singing at universities. The music competitions I won the summer before I moved to Chicago paid for me to move to Chicago.
Wow.
Like that, I am a pretty good comedian, but I was still a better musician.
Yeah.
And so I had been doing classical music for years and years and years. I sang in 9 languages, learned how to speak 4 of them. And I had just sort of been learning all these great, like, amazing classical music and all this beautiful, beautiful language it's all set to. But I wanted to have my own words out there. Because my teachers in school were always telling me, Matt, you're a great writer. Matt, you're a great writer. Matt, you need to invest more in this. Matt, you need to pay more attention to this. So it was always like I had something to say, but it was like where, how, why, what's the place for it? And so that was just sort of in the back of my mind forever. And then around the time I was 16, it was 16. It was like right when that junior year started. I don't know how or why. Because it was before she died. It was the summer before she died. Joan Rivers, for some reason, popped up in my YouTube recommendeds. And it was not her Fashion Police stuff that was on when I was in high school. Right. It was her hosting The Tonight Show in like 1981.
Yeah, I remember
so
that.
I saw this loud Jewish woman with this big blonde hair, wearing a ton of makeup and fake jewelry and obnoxious clothes. And I said, that's who I am. I just said, she's screaming. She looks like a freak. She does not care. And everyone's down for the ride. That's who I am. Yeah. And so then I just sort of obsessively started watching everything I could find and reading every book I could get my hands on. Because that's just, I'm a nerd. And I really just said, okay, when I first Googled her, it said writer, comedian, actress. So I said, okay, I guess I'm a writer and a comedian. I guess that's what I want to do then. I guess that's this other path. And then I just sort of pursued that very Midwestern and naively.
Yeah, no doubt. So do you feel like, do you still sing, by the way?
I do sing in my shows. Not fucking Massenet. There's no Mozart. There's no conductor. We're not... You don't come see me in a comedy club and then I pull back the curtain and there's the 40-piece choir. Just like in church robes. That would be fun. I do sing in my act, and I think once the economy is recovered from Corona and like touring looks normal again, like 3 to 5 years from now. Yeah. Like, 'cause that's how long I really think it's going to take for the industry to like behave again. Yeah, I agree. I would love to go out on the road and do like the small clubs that I do with a pianist and maybe like a bass or a guitar player. That'd be fun. That'd be a lot of fun. Yeah, that's cool. Because I mean, you put so much effort into that, and then you kind of did a left turn and went down the comedy route. I know it's a lot of transferable skills, though. Yeah, it's a lot of transferable skills. Yeah, and that's what I was going to mention, because you, with the singing, first of all, you're getting more comfortable in being in front of people, in front of an audience, and things like that. But also the singing, comedy is very. Good comics have a rhythm and almost a song to the way they do their delivery. Even deadpan ones like Stephen Wright, there's a real rhythm there, and I know that studying music would definitely help you there. And it especially helps for me, this is where I really see it, when I'm trying to figure out the best way to do a joke, or why something isn't working, or why the beginning isn't but the ending isn't, or whatever. When I'm trying to fix a joke, that's when I really feel like all my musical training comes in, because it's like I'm pretty confident the words are fine. How I'm doing it is the problem. And that's where you feel those things where, okay, maybe if I do this quietly, this will work better. Or maybe if I decide to go a little less angry and a little bit more in a different emotional direction, then it'll work better. Or what if I save the loud for the end? Or what if I do the punchline quietly, or I slow down for the punch instead of speed up into it? Those are all the things where it's like, how am I driving the car? Because there's nothing wrong with the car. How am I driving it? Right.
And that's funny. That's what all the old school people talk about is the way it's not so much what you say most of the time, it's how you say it. And when you deliver a punchline properly, you get 10 times the response you do as if you do it improperly.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
just,
And then also, how many times have you been watching, and especially this is with an experienced headliner, where they're sort of 20 minutes into their 45, they're like halfway through their hour,
mm,
and they get into that rhythm, like you say, and they might say something that's not even funny, but you laugh because it feels right and it sounds right.
yeah.
Once they sort of get you into the rhythm of how they talk and how they see things and what they're doing,
Uh-huh.
it's almost like a call and response and less like a that amused me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Exactly. I want to make sure we give Katie Michelle a shout out there. You
Uh,
sang at her wedding.
oh, that's my sister.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. She.
no, I sang what did I sing at her wedding? I sang Schubert's Ave Maria at her wedding.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Or maybe it was the Bach one. I don't know. She got married a long time ago. She's my older sister. We're gonna put
Okay.
it that way. She was my older sister. And that might have been like 7 or 8 years ago. It was a long time ago.
Oh yeah. Now, how old are you now? I can't tell ages.
If you had to guess, because I've lived about 3 lives. If you had to guess, how old would you say?
I'd put you at about 24.
Okay. I am 22.
Oh, wow.
I'm 22. Okay. And most people, it's funny because January of this year, when the year started, I was the host of Comedy Bar. They select a host for a whole month, and I did from New Year's Eve to the end of January. And I had my birthday in January, and I mentioned something. Oh, yeah, no, it's nice to be here because I just had my birthday on Thursday. And then he was like, oh, how old did you turn? And I said 22. 4 people spit out their drinks. I felt like I was in a cartoon. Like, I thought you were 28. You've been doing this for 10 years. What? You're 22? You're 22? I thought you were older than me. Literally, everybody, because it was after the show, everyone had left. It was just staff and management. Like, I thought you were older than me. What the fuck? I was scared of you.
Yeah, you do carry yourself well. I've got 2 kids. One's 30 and one is 26. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking back to both my kids also carried themselves pretty well. But when my son was 22, he was still pretty out there. So,
yeah.
But yeah, it's age is so hard when you get my age, because I turn 56 next week. So when you get my age, everybody looks 12. They either look 12 or about my age.
And then there's also the thing of, and I'm sure like your kids are probably like this, like after a while they like stop counting. So they're like, you've probably been 50 to them for about 8 years.
Yeah.
Like it's not moving. I'm not updating it. It's fine.
Yeah. I think it's probably more than 8, but yeah, I dig that. So the music takes you to Chicago, big city Chicago. So from the time you got to Chicago, how long did it take you to get on stage to actually do stand-up?
Oh, a week. I was in it to win it.
Yeah.
I had places to go, people to see, stuff to find out.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really funny. The first place I ever got up actually ended up being my home club. The first place I ever got up at is the Comedy Bar, which I mentioned earlier. Their main location is right in downtown Chicago and River North, which is, we get so many tourists, which is why it's the best club to work at, because if you're funny to tourists who have been drinking all day, you're funny anywhere, anytime, any place.
Yeah.
If you can wrestle those people on Saturday at 11, you're fine.
Yeah.
You're fine. They're from Tulsa and they've been drinking since 2 p.m. Maybe with lunch, maybe not.
Yeah.
So that's really where I learned how to do stand-up, because the first month or two, I only went a couple places because I was 18, didn't believe in a fake ID. And so I was only going to places that serve food.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my friend Javier from high school commented, "Hi, Javi, I miss you too. Whenever I can travel again, I'm coming back to Springfield and I'm going to get an IV for the tequila. My mom's a nurse. I know who to call. I'm getting an IV for the tequila." Yeah, but that was like really where I got up a lot, and I would only go to places that had food because I was afraid to get carded. And then I realized that if you walked in with 5 guys that everybody recognized in the middle of a conversation with them, no one's going to card you. And then what I learned after about a year is that if you're wearing orange lipstick and have a light beard, no one's going to card you because the bouncer's scared. The bouncer's like, you either belong here or you're going to bite my ear off like that. Like, that's one of those, anything could happen. Do you have like a dove in your wallet that you're going to bite the head off like Ozzy Osbourne? Yeah. Like, you look a little unhinged.
Yeah.
You just look vaguely unhinged until you hear me talking. I'm harmless.
Yeah.
But otherwise, yeah, so I sort of had to maneuver all sorts of ways to be able to get out and go around and get up as much as I wanted to. I would get booked for shows, and I remember one time they had to talk the owner of the venue into letting me come for months because I was like only 19. And then when they finally got me in there, I could only do my set. I was like walked in and walked out like an escort. I felt expensive. I felt way more expensive than like the $20 in the drink tickets that I spent because I was 19.
Yeah, no doubt. So you must have made an impression fairly early if they're asking for you when you're just 19.
Yeah, well, I started in August of 2016, and then I was producing at Laugh Factory before I turned 19 in January.
Wow.
I started with a couple really ambitious, really smart people. And when people believe in you and they think you're different and they see that you like to work hard, they want to give you a chance. Because I always have felt like a little more recently, I feel a little bit more settled, so to speak, in sort of how I feel about what I'm doing. But for the longest time, it was always, I need to be working to be worthy the shit that people are asking me to do. Because I felt like I was always getting shit just a little bit ahead. And it was always like, okay, we really need to be worth this so that way we get to do it again in this year.
Yeah. Because
you don't want to fuck up so bad that you have to take a step backward.
Right.
That's never fun. And we've all had our big bombs in big places and just trying to avoid people.
Yeah.
And you just really try. My thing was that I always just wanted to try to be worth what people were asking me to do. Because I was getting asked to do a lot very early on. Like me. I was actually producing comedy showcases before I'd ever seen one.
Yeah.
And I didn't really even know what they were because I knew what open mics were because of the internet. And I knew what stand-up was at clubs and theaters because of specials. But the whole concept of anything happening in the middle, I was too Midwestern and grew up on a farm. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
My sister went to high school in a convent. What are you talking about?
Right.
I'm too Midwestern for it.
Yeah.
I knew nothing. I was very ignorant and like fine with it.
I see in your personality, and tell me if I'm wrong, I see in your personality that you're kind of like me, that when somebody asks you to do something and they're expecting B, you always go to A+. You always want to blow them away. Totally.
I always want to do the extra step, and it's not even, I feel like I have something to prove, not to them, but to me.
Yeah.
Because I'm the one who always sets the challenge because they're asking me because they think I can. They're not asking me because they think I'm going to fail. They don't want their show to suck. They clearly, by stretching out and saying, hey, I know you've only been doing this for a year and a half, but can you do 30? Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
And you do the work and you try and learn how to stretch things out and make things like a little bit more, enjoy your pauses and really try to enjoy your time up there before you have the full time to be up there.
Right. And that, it's funny. Everybody I talk to that has achieved any amount of success has been thrown into situations that they weren't ready for, but they said, okay, I'll just do it.
Can I tell you the prime I wasn't ready, but I figured it out story, which I think will be just inspirational for anyone? Okay. So I had a friend who moved to Chicago from Indiana. He'd been here a couple months. He said, Matt, I have my first show. It'd mean the world for you to come. And I was like, sure, whatever. I was not booked that night. It was like a Thursday or something. All I wanted to do was drink 4 beers and not stand up. That's all I had planned for that evening. And just be nice for my friend and be there for my friend who was so new to the city. Well, I knew the producers, but I'm never that person. When I go to hang out at a bar, when I go to hang out at a show, I don't ask to get up. I'm not that person. I knew the producers. I said hi. I hugged people. I bought people $2 beers. I didn't ask to get up. I'm not that guy. So I'm sitting in the audience enjoying the show. It's fun people. It's people I hadn't met before. I love when I meet new comics and I've never seen them before and they're great. I love all those fun surprises.
Right.
Well, there is someone who's from Chicago who writes for Saturday Night Live named Chris Red, who was supposed to headline the show. And he was running late because when you come in from out of town and you have a fucking Emmy, you do like 7 shows in a night. Yeah. You're kind of all over the place. And so the producers were texting him and he was just like, I'm really held up at this other spot. I'm sorry. I'm going to be this amount late. I'm really sorry. I'm doing my best to hit everything I said I could do. And because I'd hate to cancel on you. And so the producers literally, his name Brad Rickert, tapped me on the shoulder and he said, Matt, Chris is late. We don't know how late he's going to be. Can you just get up until whenever? He literally said, I don't know if it's 5 minutes or 45. I have no idea when he's getting here. Can you get on stage until whenever? And I did 28 minutes of stand-up with no preparation. Wow. None. I didn't have a notebook. I thought I was going out to watch my friend and buy some people I hadn't seen in a while some beers. I literally went out there with like $40 and my ID. I did 27 minutes with no warning. Chris came in, saw my closer, and then as they were introing up, he was like, thanks for helping out, man. You're really good. I like that. And then
wow. And
I just had to be there. Yeah. If you're a dick and you don't support your friends, you don't get to open for people with Emmys. Yeah. That's more. If you're an asshole, nothing good happens to you.
That's a good thing to remember. Now, that set, you're doing 27, 28 minutes. Did you do stuff off the cuff? Did you do stuff that you remember? Did you work the audience? How did that go? My style is to always mix everything. I cannot do the same set twice. Literally. I typically know where I want to start, and I always have my 1 or 2 openers that I'm using at the moment in the back of my head. Mm-hmm. But I sort of take whatever jokes I've been doing, what I've been trying to fix, where I'm at emotionally, how the audience is receiving me, what they look like to me as far as what they've laughed at before, if they're older, the ethnic references I can make in regards to myself or not. All those things, I'm constantly making all those choices in the minute. Because when you're lucky enough to have a lot of material, it's never oh, fuck, I hope this joke works. It's, okay, I hope I make the next right decision. Because I know I will have something that will make them happy. I just got to find it. And so when you really aren't planning at all, your first 5 minutes are a little more, and especially when you're drunk, your first 5 minutes are a little bit more, oh, okay, this is who's here. Okay, this is how they're picking me up. And then you're able to go into what you're doing. But I'm always doing a mix of stuff I've written, an improvised tag on what I've written, improvisation with the audience, and then written material, because I always have an opener and closers that I'm working with. But I really let the middle be playtime, because I'm not, the reason I never do jokes the exact same way or story the exact same way with the exact same words every single time is because I sang Hugo von Hofmannsthal's librettos, and I learned plays by fucking Edward Albee, and guess what? I'm not fucking Shakespeare. Yeah. I'm not so special all this shit has to be set in stone and that it's so perfect it can't move. Right. I don't have a Pulitzer. Yeah. I don't have a Tony Award. So I like to have good ideas and be a good personality and be open and be receptive and have material that can reach.
but that doesn't mean it's got all commas in the same place.
Right.
And even that I do all parts of a bit sometimes.
Right. And for live stand-up, it's rare to see really good spontaneity, and spontaneity really, that's a crowd knows when it's happening. The people obviously who can work the crowd well, or people who start a set and say, wow, that's not working, let's go this direction, and they can turn on a dime and make that happen. That's really magical. I know that's something I can't do, so I like to see that in people, and audience
really
appreciates it.
It's really fun for the audience because, like you said, they can definitely tell when it's an authentic, not gonna happen again moment.
Yeah.
Like, I remember one time, this is just an example of one of those moments that could never happen again. She was sitting up front. There was a woman sitting up front, and she was sitting by herself. And she clearly wasn't upset that she was sitting by herself, because she was like dressed great, and like the hair was done, and like she got the food she wanted. Like, she clearly was taking herself out on a date, and she was great about it. She had the loudest, best laugh I've ever heard in my entire life. She sounded like Michael Jackson's chimp. Like, she had the most laugh I have ever heard out of like a 30-year-old white woman in my life. And like, that's also my target demo of women between 25 and 45. That's who loves me more than anybody. Straight guys really like me. Teenagers love me. But those like young to middle-aged women are always down for me. And so I just felt like every 45 seconds I was just making references to like throwing her a banana peel from being at the goddamn zoo. Because like, again, just these wild animal noises every 45 seconds. And it's just this playtime of, that's not going to happen again. It's not going to happen again.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, that type of stuff, that magical type of stuff, audiences just eat that stuff up. And, I've seen it, and it's the best thing ever. It's funny. I'm a fan of Nate Bargatze, and we went to see him in Indy towards the latter part of last year. And on the same tour, he came to South Bend. I said, well, it's the same tour. Let's go see it. Funny thing is he did the exact same stuff. And I love him. I mean, he's funny as hell, but he did the exact same stuff. And
that's the way a lot of people have to work. Because some people feel like they can't remember it if it's not in an order.
Yeah.
I've heard that from some people. It's like, if I don't do this, then this, I feel like the first 10 minutes are all fucked up.
Yeah.
That's how some people work like that. And then also what I've understood from going online and reading contracts and being nosy is that a lot of times when you're working on a special, they like sort of demand that it's written all ahead of time and out and seen and practiced in a certain way over a certain period of time.
Wow.
So because they want to see every joke before they put it on their damn network.
Yeah.
Like when you're Wanda Sykes, I feel like you and your production company have a tad more liberty, but like you're not necessarily working with censors, but it's just like, do you have to say that? Do you have to?
Yeah.
You have to.
The funny thing about his two sets was in Indy, I could tell he wanted to be there. In South Bend, I could tell he didn't want to be there.
Why do people think that small towns are beneath them? It's always the best audience.
Yeah.
It's always the best audience.
Oh, yeah. And he had more people in South Bend than he had in Indy, too. It was a smaller venue.
For entertainment, because you might not get another comedian on that level, or like another concert for maybe 6 weeks. So this is the fun thing to do for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I was, everybody loved it, but I had something to compare it to, which was the exact same thing when he did it better. So, and then it's it was disappointing, but it's kind of neat to see that, because that, we're people too. And guess what? We have shitty days. And I could just tell he was having one.
I really enjoy seeing, because it's so funny to me, because people always think, oh, I would never feel comfortable getting on stage and being improvisational and not having everything planned, because there's like, I feel like I'm not very stable for the audience. When you are stuck in an act, and not stuck as in like you've committed yourself to it, and you're doing these jokes for 2 years that are evergreen or whatever.
Yeah.
it all becomes about your emotional state because that's the only thing that's changing.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm like able to pick up on what they're doing and like we're able to make decisions together. But if you show up in a bad mood with the script, you turn on autopilot and you stay there till they give you a check.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I sort of feel like we all end up having to be a part of the flow, and trying to resist it actually creates a bigger issue.
Yeah. Yeah. And the fact that you are in the moment every time you go up makes it so that you're never going to have one of those experiences. You know, you may have a shitty day, but once you get up there, you're trying to do something different, and you're trying to turn that shitty day into something better. And that type of spontaneity, like I said, just works.
Totally, because like my act is always about like my relationship, my family, like stuff that's happening to me directly or stuff I'm experiencing directly. Or back when I was producing shows in Chicago at the Playground Theater and at the Laugh Factory, they're 10-minute walk from each other.
Yeah.
And I lived in the neighborhood. So I was really able to talk about my neighborhood, and everyone would have seen the poster on their way there. Everyone would have gotten the reference because, you know, been around. So it's all these things that are so specific that, well, when it's your life, why wouldn't you be free with it?
Right. Yeah.
When it's something that happened to you last week, why wouldn't you be a little bit, you know, not about it? Like there's no reason to be about it because you weren't there. You know?
Yeah, that's great.
It's sort of like, it's why I feel like comedians are never nervous when they get married, because everyone's always afraid and has cold feet the night before they get married, because it's like, oh my God, I have to like live the biggest moment of my life tomorrow. We live through all the big moments of our life every time we get on stage, because, you know, your relationship with your sister or your mom dying or that time you went to rehab is what's in your act.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. On this part of the podcast, you may notice a little bit of disconnect, and this is because Matt and I recorded an entire podcast, and about 37 minutes of it was actually listenable, and the rest of it was trash. So we are starting all over again. Hi, Matt. How you doing?
Hi, Scott. I'm doing all right. How are you doing this afternoon?
All right. I got my walk in, and I cleaned the garage a little bit, and did real work, so I'm doing okay. What did you do today?
Oh, nothing. I've just been busy working from home, which is like been lucky to do it, so I can't complain too much. But it sure does keep you busy.
Yeah. So you talked about on Facebook, you talked about doing a 20-minute clean set. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so basically I got asked to do a corporate gig, which for those who are like not super conversant in comedy is when you get asked to work specifically for a corporation, not for like a club or a bar or a theater. And it was a pride gig, so because it was the month of June, so pretty much everyone that was on the lineup was gay or lesbian or trans or somewhere on that range. And yeah, it was really, really fun. There were 2 different shows. They're across 2 different time zones because it's an international company with people in India as well as the United States. So they wanted to catch all their time zones. And over 700 people watched live between the 2 shows just of the employees, which was really nice. I did 2 different 10-minute sets. I could have done the same material on both, but I just gotta test the waters every time you give me an opportunity.
Yeah.
So I couldn't just let dead dogs fly, and I had to see exactly what I could do. And I did like a solid 18 to 20 cleans. It was really, really shocking because I like to talk about all the body parts where they go.
Yeah.
So this was fun. This was really interesting and fun.
So what you did for those 2 10-minute sets, did you come up with brand new stuff? Did you take some of the stuff that you've done and cleaned it up? How do you make that happen?
The way that I made that happen was basically my opener that I did COVID, because, you know, with our live shows, you really do have to re-examine it. I took every was that, and then most of the cursing out, and then most of the overtly sexual references out. I also have a new longer piece that I've been doing that's about me on purpose, because I feel like people's families are some of the most relatable experiences that anybody has. And so to be able to talk about that in a non-controversial way was something that I wanted to do on purpose. It's been working on over the past couple months. And I think really easy to do inoffensively characters for the last one of that set. And I have this new character that I've been doing that, in my mind, she's my neighbor. And it's just this old Jewish woman name. It's one that you can have the freedom of not being this. You're not going to curse on accident.
So you took the character thing. Can you tell me a little bit about that? How you came up with your Jewish neighbor?
Well, the way I sort of came up with her was that when I moved into this neighborhood, I realized that was the only ethnicity we don't have. That's honestly where my mind first came from. Because on this block, it's literally white, black, Latino, and Asian. Like literally, like one next to one, one next to one, one next to one. And I was like, we don't have any spicy white people. Like, there's no Italians, there's no Jews, there's no Polish. Like, there's no spicy white people. So I already noticed that. And then before my current relationship, I dated a lot of Jewish guys. I have a lot of Jewish friends. So, like, sort of, I have this familiarity with, like, I just know so many different people's families, and I've been able to see so many consistencies. It almost feels like I'm making fun of my family and, like, my friends and, like, my own sort of experiences. And it's so harmless and it's so fun because, like, my version of the character is that she's super educated. She's a retired professor, and her husband's cremated, and she keeps him in a Fabergé egg. Like, I love her. She's insane, and I love her. The Fabergé egg costs more than the house when they bought it in the 80s. I love them.
That's great. So is characters, I've watched some of your stuff, is characters something that you bring to the stage when you're not doing like a Zoom type thing?
Characters are often something that I do specifically for online stuff because I feel like they're so harmless. As far as in my live work, they're starting to appear, but it's been a newer development. I personally find doing characters to be really hard, and I find getting other voices that are not my own to be really difficult, and I really enjoy the work, and I enjoy the challenge, and I enjoy trying to make the posture different, and trying to make everything really clear, but it takes me years to figure out a voice. It takes me years to figure out a voice. Like, I do not have a lot of different characters available to me that aren't me, and they tend to be based out of people in my life, like guys that I've dated, moms, or coworkers that I've had, or people like that I have a slight distance from, but a direct connection to. That's the best way to try, because, like, for example, I cannot do my sister's voice because she and I have the same accent. She's just a little higher than me. So when I do my sister on stage, I do our grandma, because it's a woman's voice. It's something that's very close, but it's not so close to me.
You know, it's funny, the whole character thing, because I was in a spot where, you know, I've done a few of these Zoom mics, and I felt like that I couldn't do my regular act because there's body language and there's expressions and things that I do that just it wasn't going to translate to Zoom. So I actually came up with a right-wing conspiracist named Eugene from Smyrna, and I put a red hat on that says apocalypse on it and wore sunglasses because I didn't want anybody to know who I was, and I had so much fun doing that. And
isn't it?
I mean, you just get into that character, and I think I did it like 3 different times. And the last time he had been on a couple of the protests, one in Michigan and one in Pennsylvania, when they were protesting the shutdowns, and he caught COVID, so he was dying. And so I killed him, and I probably shouldn't have. But, you know, he had 2 kids. He had baby Kid Rock and baby Miranda Lambert, and they were always getting into his guns and shooting each other. So it was a lot of fun to do. And
Miranda Lambert does look pretty feisty.
Yeah.
I think she's got it in.
Yeah, I just, I had never, the thought of doing a character had never come to me until I started doing this stuff. And I'm like, I'm looking at my act and I'm like, this just doesn't work. I can't do this.
From the kind of stand-up you try to do, it is like your life and your personality. So what makes the joke really funny might be a shrug, or might be the way you turn your head, or might be the way that you look at the guy in the front row.
Right.
Or I've even seen some people where they have this in their act to where, like, if they aren't able to ask somebody in the front row, like, a question, or like, you're going to pretend like that didn't happen, but it happened.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if they can't have those moments, they don't get the maximum out of their set. So, and it's really weird because got into this because we wanted to be who we were on stage. Like, you're funny and you want to be funny in front of people. And so to kind of go and like, okay, but what if I tried to be like somebody else? Mm-hmm. What if I tried to be like other people? It's not where our brain goes initially. But I really think in these new environments, it's a really good way to get yourself out there if you like can be creative about it.
Yeah, I agree with that because obviously you're having fun with it, but everybody I talk to that's in the business and a professional at comedy says, a lot of the clubs are going to probably go away, and this online stuff is not going to go away. There's going to be some form of live online stuff that's going to stay with us, and we're going to have to adjust to that to be able to keep up.
We are honestly, the next step that I see happening is that there's going to be a live streaming platform, sort of like the Zooms and like the WebExes and all of that, but that it is protected the same way Netflix and Hulu are protected, in that you cannot take a screenshot and you cannot take a screen video.
Right.
I think if that happens, then we will have every occasion to do online specials and to do live sets, and for the idea of doing 15 minutes, 20 minutes straight online to not be terrifying, because you're not worried about someone screenshotting the worst possible way for anyone to see your act and then saying, this is what she does, don't book her, or this is what he does, I told you he wasn't funny 3 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the concept of this is, it's taken like the Netflix specials like you talked about and Hulu specials and whatever, and it's actually turning it up a notch because you're live. You may have the opportunity to talk to the audience or at least address them. Mm-hmm. So it's like almost best of both worlds. You're not traveling, 3 hours to get to a bar in Idaho, and you're still able to do something that is live and fresh. So
totally. I mean, this isn't even, I don't even want to say that it's like a new and novel idea, because around 3 or 4 years ago, HBO put out a special with a comedian named Drew Michael, and they did it in one room with no audience. Like, that was the whole special idea of how to sell this whole hour comedian for, okay, you've never seen him on TV before, but it's a really interesting concept and this guy's really funny. He's going to do this to no one in a room.
That's almost like a one-man show type play that's televised.
Yeah, and it's almost, to me, it seemed like the most extreme version of that Sarah Silverman thing, because it seemed like the more successful she gets, the smaller room she would tape her specials in, until eventually it was like a 50-seater in like the back of a record store in LA.
Yeah.
Like, I just think it was sort of like the ultimate of that.
Yeah, that's a really cool idea. I'm going to have to look back and see if I can find that special, because I'd like to see that.
His name's Drew Michael. He started in Chicago.
Yeah, that's really cool. I watched the video on your page where you're doing the makeup. And
thank you.
Yeah, and you made a comment on there that I wanted to pursue a little bit. You talk about playing these small towns and rural places, podunks and all that kind of stuff, and you talk about people being proud that they were nice to you. And
yeah.
And I you said it, and then you said, I don't necessarily think they're the best people in the world, but if they'll hire me, I'll go. Paraphrasing, obviously. But you said something like that. Tell me how you feel when somebody is acting proud when they're being nice to you.
It's just sort of like when someone feels like they're like they've made a personal development milestone and that like you were a part of it. It sort of makes you feel like a building block or a piece of Play-Doh or like Mr. Potato Head.
Uh-huh.
Like, okay, I helped your kid recognize colors, and now they can finish kindergarten. Like, it's like, wow, you realize that I am smart and funny and a nice guy the same way a white gay guy would be, or the same way a straight mixed guy would be, or the same way someone who looks like you look like would be.
Yeah.
If you did not have that in your mind, that I have the potential to just be a nice, normal person who's funny and good at their job and can say thank you and tip well, you're a freak, and you don't need to tell me that you just feel like taking benefits.
Now,
Like, I don't need to know. Like, I'm grateful that like you've changed and grown, but like I don't want to know.
Right. Do you feel like that's a step in the right direction, though?
I feel like it is a step in the right direction for their mental processes, but it's still not like fully realized work. Like, it's a step, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's near an end step at all.
No.
And it's also much better than like the woman who at New Year's of 2018 or 2019 when I was hosting at some venue, just stuffed her entire hand in my afro. Like, so that's not, like, until of radiation of rude and weird things you can say or do to me after a show. Like, that's not that bad. It does get worse, but I do think that it is sort of like, to me, it sort of feels like, imagine if you went on a date with a girl who was like 30 and she was like, I never normally go out with guys like you, but you're a really good time. We should go out again. You feel disgusting.
Yeah.
You feel disgusting. Like, there's really nothing technically wrong with what she said, but you still feel disgusting.
Right. It's still treating you more as an object than a human being. And
also more like the fact that you would think that it's normal to say, I thought you were going to be a freak if you weren't. Like, that's something that you can just say to anybody. Or like, I thought you were going to be a monster and you weren't, or I thought you were going to, like, I don't know, try to like touch my boyfriend's ass and you didn't. I don't know what's on their mind. But like, just the fact that you think that that's like completely fine and normal to say.
Right.
Like, it would never, ever cross my mind when I go out to Iowa to say, like, I really thought all you guys were going to beat my ass and tie me to a fence, but you're actually nice. This is so weird. I thought I was going to get raped with a Coke bottle. This is uplifting. Like, you don't want to ever lead with the fact that you thought something was going to go poorly, you thought someone was going to be ignorant, or you thought they'd be dangerous or bad or whatever. It's just like, that's to the point of manners where it's like, don't point out that people have big ears and frizzy hair. It's not nice. Keep walking. It's almost like I'm parenting somebody at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I experienced that on a very small scale because young people, they see me, and I mean, I look like Mr. Joe, conservative football coach or whatever, and they say, I didn't know you were cool. I didn't think you'd be as cool as you are.
Which is fucked up because, like, why wouldn't you be cool? You have had more fun than they have had already. Like,
yeah,
they don't understand. Why wouldn't you be cool?
Yeah, that's
because you don't do comedy as like a post-divorce or when most people get into their second career. You don't do it because you're lame and because you want to boss other people around and tell them what to do and how to act.
Yeah,
that's the young people. That's not so much the people who start at 45.
Yeah, no doubt. There's another short clip of you talking about Iowa on Facebook.
That's funny.
That was totally off the cuff, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was totally improvised. That was the one where I was wearing the black shirt and my hair was in a bun. Yeah. That was funny because I love talking to my audiences, and especially at the club where that was filmed, Comedy Bar, that gets a lot of tourists.
Mm-hmm.
And I am a Midwestern boy, and I'm a Southern boy. I'm from Illinois, Kentucky, and I've been able to travel a decent amount of the Midwest to the South doing comedy. So I love to know where people are from. And the reason I was so moved by Iowa is because my sister and her husband do not live there anymore, but they lived there for 3 years. And because her husband got a great job out there, he's like, we're going to go to the woods, take promotions, and get this to the city with money. My sister said, you're smart. So they kind of lived in this awful town of 7,000 people in the middle of nowhere for a couple years. And I just remember having to take the Amtrak train out there and then having to get someone to pick me up and then drive another hour out. And it's just if it is this much work to hang out with my sister and her toddler, I don't wonder why you guys do that. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. So, I was not necessarily a place where dreams go to, survive or, come true. But it's a place, it's on the map, it's a state, they pay taxes, they're difficult.
Mm-hmm. It's funny that a lot of comics tend to come from those small towns, though, because you came from Springfield, and so many of them I hear on podcasts and stuff. They all come from really small towns, and they're the comics that are really most out there. I wish I could come up with some names, but
Johnny Carson was from Lincoln, Nebraska.
Yeah, he was from Nebraska. Yeah,
Andy Richter, Conan's second guy. My grandma was actually best friends with his aunt. He's from the middle of nowhere, Illinois, too.
Uh-huh.
Most funny people, I think, are from nowhere, because I think if you either grow up as an only child or you grow up without a lot of stimulus and options for entertainment, you become very good at entertaining yourself.
Yeah.
You become very good at creating stories in your head, and also you become very good at paying attention to books and movies and television shows and documentaries and sort of picking up information.
Mm-hmm.
You become very astute at just sort of picking up information because you're alone so much. And so much of being a good comedian is, I think half of it is being confident, and then the other half of it is being smart. Because if you're really confident and you're really smart, you will figure out how to make other people think that sounds funny.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think the third part is having a extreme desire to get the hell out of that town.
Totally, because everyone I went to high school with is funnier than me, but they wanted to stay there, so I'm telling jokes, and they, work 80 hours a week. They're happy. They're happy.
Yeah, it seems like everybody, like Dave Letterman, he came from a small town. I think, was he from Muncie, or did he just go to Ball State? Maybe he was from Indy. Yeah, but anyway, he's kind of a country guy, and, he started in LA. He started doing stuff at the Comedy Store, and that is, a guy that just wants to get the hell out of Dodge. So it's I think that's a common factor.
You have to be almost born with that desire to grow, because when you're involved in a self-employed career, even if you get to be the host of the Tonight Show, or even if you get to be a theater comic, you're still always growing. You're still always trying to make things better, make things different, reanalyze everything, make things more efficient, make things clearer to the audience.
Mm-hmm.
You're never done growing. So I think that desire to, I have to leave, I have to change, I have to look at this again. Am I making the right decision? Am I making the best decision?
Mm-hmm.
The personality type to go out and lead and be strategic about it is the type of person that I think to have the personality for the career.
Right. One of the things,
because if you're not adventurous and curious, you're fucked.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. One of the things I wanted to ask you, because you are you're 22 and you are probably on the pulse of what, people think as far as comedy and stuff like that. There's a lot of blowback on this cancel culture stuff. That, somebody did something, 5 or 10 years ago. Do we need to take that out and tell everybody, or like Kevin Hart, the stuff that he said and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Do you think that we've taken cancel culture too far, or we haven't gone far enough?
I think most people my age would say that we haven't gone far enough. And my analysis is that the only place I feel like we've gone too far is I feel like people do not feel as though they still need to read everything anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That's what bothers me. I really feel like people feel like if they read a headline and they have access to one article, that is all the information that they need to make up their mind about something.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think in any aspect of life, giving it 60 seconds of effort has ever been sufficient for anything.
Right.
So that's the only thing that I feel like bothers me is I just feel like people, I don't even want to say rush to judgment, but just rush, period.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just feel like there's a general, just everyone's in a hurry to find out everything about everybody and then figure out what it means and then who it impacts and then who all their friends are and where they work and then how they can tell it.
Right. I just think about myself, and I think about the things I said, like when I was a kid, and, I said, racist things. I was in an all-white town. Mm-hmm. I let racist things be said, and I think you have to allow, and, I'm just glad it wasn't recorded, but you do have to allow for the growth in people, too.
Totally. I mean, I think we are all entitled to change, but we all kind of owe each other hey, this is what I meant. Or, yeah, you know what? That was fucked up.
Yeah.
I think we all owe each other the opportunity to grow, but we also do all kind of owe each other an explanation if somebody thinks that we, did something that either just flat out doesn't make any sense. Because sometimes what I think when people are trying to rush to say that they're offended or they're hurt by something,
mm-hmm.
Maybe a phrase that they're really looking for is, I don't really understand all the information that's being thrown at me, or because I really feel like sometimes we don't even have a grip of what we're looking at before we want to call it a name.
Right. And then you get cases like Louis C.K. Somebody posted something about when are we going to give Louis C.K. a break, and it was one
Louis
of the few.
C.K. got his break. He's selling tickets all over the country. I don't understand what the problem is. He's okay.
Well,
he's fine. Like, is he selling out the Beacon Theater anymore? No. But is he making a living doing a comedy and bringing in income? Absolutely.
Yeah. But I'm not going to get on board with him until every woman in the world says he's okay. Because I never felt like I would, and this is its own issue. In finding all that shit out about him, I didn't feel like I was losing my job. I thought the man was good. I thought the man worked hard. I thought he was very interesting, and he put out a lot of different kinds of material, like movies and different things he'd written. Mm-hmm. But I didn't feel like I was losing George Carlin. I didn't feel like I was losing a job. I did not look at him as the beacon of, like, 21st century content the way a lot of my peers did. Yeah. I think a lot of people were injured by the finding out about his misbehavior and then him having to pay any penalty for it. Mm. Yeah, I feel like if I'm looking at somebody from his generation that came up at the same time, I would lean more towards Lewis Black than Louis C.K. as a writer.
Oh, totally. And my boyfriend would agree with you.
Yeah. Yeah, he's
like a lot of people would agree with you.
Yeah, he's one of my favorites. One of the things I like to ask everybody that comes on the show, and I probably asked you in the shitty audio we had before, but let's do it again. What 3 things do you know now that you wish you would have known when you first started doing stand-up?
Oh, I don't think you asked me this. Oh, wow. Okay. What 3 things do I know now that I wish I'd known in the beginning? The first thing is that there's more money than you think, so negotiate harder and stick around longer.
Okay.
That would be the first thing. The second thing that I would say to myself at this point is, and I did it, but follow your instincts. Your instincts aren't wrong. Like, you were smart before, you'll be smart after. Your mind's got you on a good place, follow it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, negotiate for more money and follow your instincts. And then the third thing that I think I would have told myself would have been I wish I had found my friends in comedy community, quote unquote, a little bit sooner than I did.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up finding a really funny, really good people I love to hang out with and I love to write with, but it took me longer than I wish it had. So I wish I had found my comedy friends a little soon. Those are my three things.
Do you feel like the comedy friends thing is something that because you were a little bit standoffish or you just didn't know how to proceed?
I think it was a lot of factors. I think part of it was that the main real contributor to me not having a lot of close friends in comedy when I started was that I was underage.
Mm-hmm.
I was 18, 19, 20 for the first 2.5 years. So I could get into the venue, but I couldn't get into the bar to go drink and hang out with everybody after. And that's where the business went down.
Right.
So I didn't have access to that. And then the other reason is that I look older than I am, and people sort of think that I don't think I'm older than I am, that I'm a little further along than I am, and that I have a little bit more status than I am, and they've always thought that. So maybe I have really bitchy body language, or maybe I look like I was a king in a past life. I don't know. But like people are sometimes afraid to talk to me and stuff like that, and I think that might have part to do with it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I remember one time at my home club, they found out how old I was because my birthday was during the day after I was working there, and they're like, "You're 22. I was scared of you when you first came here. I thought you were older than me." So I don't know. I feel like it's a combination of not having access, and then what they saw, they probably thought I was Queen of England.
Mm-hmm.
It was even 50.
Yeah, you put off a very confident vibe, and sometimes that scares people. And
it especially scares men who are older than me. That's what really freaks out. It freaks out straight guys who are older than me because they know how scared they were when they were 19, and they can't handle that someone else took another cab.
Yeah, no doubt. One thing I really need to mention, because I watched the makeup video on your site, and then I watched the one that you did that was either yesterday or the day before. I mean, you do some fantastic stuff with makeup. I mean,
Thank you.
I mean, you don't look like the same person when you're done, and you could be white, you could be black, you could be Asian. I mean, you could do whatever you want.
That's the goal, to be able to play with everything.
Yeah.
I really feel like, and I was actually talking about this on a podcast that's a little bit more serious, but I sort of feel like I don't really know exactly what I look like until I put all my features there, because my weight does fluctuate a little bit. My skin tone goes through about every color that exists in the year. Sometimes I have a beard, sometimes I don't. I look like just about anything. Yeah. And so once I put eyelashes where I want them, and I put the size I want them to be, and I decide where the eyebrows are, then I sort of feel like I look like a person. And so I enjoy being able to make that person look older or younger or darker or lighter or, fuller in the face or more, thin and, tighter features. I enjoy being able to play with that.
Yeah, I'm just amazed how the shape of your face changes when you do that stuff with the shadowing and all that. I
could kill somebody and move to Louisiana right now if I had to.
Yeah.
I could pull some ID camera running in the middle of the night shit and you wouldn't even know.
Yeah. Yeah, it just looks like an art to me, and then
also when I flat iron my hair, I literally look like Rashida Jones. I look like the next girl on Parks and Recreation.
Oh, okay.
I can make anything happen.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, Matt, this has been great talking to you, and thank you for doing the second session because of the audio of the first one. And I just want to tell everybody how they can get to you. So, Matt, if you could let everybody know how they can find you and anything that you're working on right now.
Oh, thank you so much. So my Instagram and my TikTok are @NetBrownComic. My Instagram is the most active of all my social media. And then if you want to check out my website where you can see a video of me performing as well as my resume and all that fun stuff, if you're trying to book me, my website's netbrowncomic.com. And if you want to come see live shows when the world opens back up, go to mattbrown.com/count.
That's great.